Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Let's Relieve Regret podcast. My name is Victoria, and we're here with my co-host,
Shadoe.
And we're so excited today because we have a guest. My good friend, Anna Alexander's here. She's going to share a story with us in the podcast. She's also going to participate with giving feedback. And Anna's just amazing. I've known her, I guess, for like 20 years.
You must have met as children.
Yeah. Yes, we're that young. I met Anna through my husband, and she's a Canadian certified life coach, nutritionist, personal trainer. And I love her viewpoint on things. She offers holistic approaches to wellness. She has courses, video courses. She does speaking. She has coaching programs, and she helps people just generally fuel their body and their life. And she's also a feminist like me. I'm going to say us, but I'm not going to put words in your mouth, Shadoe. But I think we'll have a really great conversation today. So welcome, Anna. And I'm really, really excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. And I'm super excited that I'm your first guest.
Yay. You're the perfect first guest.
And today my friend came over and we were working my assistant, and she never had cherries. And today I gave her first cherries.
Oh.
It's very funny. And I realized how bad that sounded.
That sounded a little weird right when you said it, but we're not going to edit that out.
No. I'm also allergic to cherries. And every time someone mentions cherries, I just get so sad because I didn't know until about 4 or 5 years ago. And the summer's not the same without them. I watch people eat them and I just look at them with dead eyes. I'm like, hey, but I want everyone to enjoy cherries. I just miss them so much.
I'm your first, and I give her cherries.
Like a fresh cherry, right? Not a
cherries. She never had cherries.
Wow, I love fresh cherries so much. And they're only around in Canada for a month, right? We get
Pretty
them in
much.
July. I also should mention Anna's coming at us today from Spain. So she's an expat living in Spain. So I'm sure we'll integrate that into our conversation a bit too.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you check in? Shadoe, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling excited. This is the first thing I'm getting after today, which is great because I haven't, I've talked about this on the podcast. Sometimes I get started on one thing and then I get distracted and I move over to this other thing. And then at the end of the day, I feel like I've got nothing done. But I always feel really productive after we record the podcast. So I'm really glad that this is the first thing I'm getting done today.
Yeah, me too. My podcast days, I'm that was my work for the day. I'm not going to sit in front of the computer anymore. How are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 10?
8.
Eight's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anna, how are you feeling today? You want to give us a word and how you're feeling on a scale of 1 to 10? I know it's if you're not in the practice of doing it.
I'm feeling a little overwhelmed today.
Yeah. And I'm probably an 8 too. And I'm feeling tired. I've been really fatigued for the last week, but in terms of my mood, I'm feeling pretty good. So that's kind of an interesting juxtaposition, right? My body's tired, but my mood's okay. So that's how I'm feeling. Does anybody have a cause for applause they want to share? You don't have to. Do you have a cause for applause, Shadoe?
Yes, even though people can't see me, I'm not wearing black today. I'm wearing a color. Look at me. And I think that's also why I'm feeling a bit boosted in terms of mood as well. I love my black clothes. Don't get me wrong. I especially downtown Toronto, I feel like everyone wears all black all the time. I've decided to change it up recently and I have a pink shirt on and it makes me very happy.
Yay, color therapy.
What about you, Victoria or Anna? Cause for applause?
My cause for applause is I don't know if I said this last time we recorded or not. I might have. I've been rowing for the past 2 weeks and I haven't been in a boat in 4 years.
Wow.
So just once a week, just dipping my toe back in, trying to figure out if it's still joyful. And yeah, we kind of talked about it. It's something I've been doing for 30 years. So now I'm trying to decide if it's something that I'm doing because I feel obligated to do it or I have to because it's part of my identity, or if it's something that I still really enjoy doing. I had a really joyful rowing practice yesterday. And by joyful, I mean, we did something called speed work where you just go super, super fast and see if the boat works. So most people would be like, that's not joyful.
Were you coxying or?
Yeah, I was coxying. I always Cox. Yeah. Anna, you don't have to, but do you have a cause for applause you'd like to share? Anything good happened to you this week? It could just be that you got out of bed.
I slept 2 nights in a row.
Woohoo!
Yeah, so I don't know. I have insomnia, so I didn't really do anything. It just happened. So
Well, that's
Yeah.
amazing. We're super happy for you that you slept 2 nights in a row. Celebrate the small things. We're literally telling your brain that it's good. So maybe you'll sleep tonight too.
Yeah, like my cause for applause was the shirt I'm wearing, right? Like causes for applause don't have to be amazing big things. Like I think Victoria's was really good. But like everyone should be just trying to find those small little wins wherever they can get them. So yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to Anna. So our last episode in the pre-banter of our episode, we talked about hard pants.
I saw that and I was going to bring it up on your Instagram.
And if you listen to the last episode, everybody, I said I have a friend that calls them hard pants. Well, it's my friend Anna, who's now the guest on the show.
Amazing.
And we had a whole discussion about hard pants versus like lounge pants. So thank you for that. You gave us a good 20 minutes of programming.
Absolutely. Because I was calling them real pants, but all pants are real pants. So yeah, I like hard pants a lot.
I have to confess, I didn't make it up. I think it's the creator of Whole30. I follow her, Melissa. I can't remember his name right now. But she mentioned hard pants. I was like, that's exactly what they are.
Yeah, they're hard pants. I know. When you said it to me, I was like, yes.
Yeah. I was like, I don't do hard pants. I hate them.
Yeah. Anna and I, here's what we'll do. We'll do a poll on the Instagram.
Yeah,
hard
definitely.
Pants, no hard pants. Anna and I are team no hard pants. Shadoe's team hard pants.
Not every day. I'm not wearing hard pants today. All I said was that I recently bought a few pairs of hard pants, or real pants is what I was calling them. And it was just nice to kind of have storage again, like on my body, and be able to like put things in pockets, and the pockets were big enough for the things I want to carry. Like that's what I was excited about.
Well,
and
I think
also
you made a really good point about you put them on and you feel like I'm on. It gives you a mindset shift. All right. Well, should we get started?
Probably.
Shadoe, I think so. Here's how it's going to work today, because we have guests. Shadoe's going to do a share.
Yeah.
And then we'll have a talk. And then Anna's going to do a share, and we're really excited. And again, audience, we have no idea. We don't know what Anna's going to tell us. Anna and I don't know what Shadoe's going to tell us. So this really is just an authentic, real conversation. That's part of the experiment, everyone. Okay. You ready, Shadoe?
Absolutely.
All right.
I have an experience I need to let go of in order to move forward. I regret using the MyFitnessPal app. For 2 years, I used this app as a way to control everything I ate. I thought it must be better than a group program that would put my weight on display because I could do it myself. It would be like this little secret that I had for my own thing. And also when it was being marketed, it really pushed the idea that it would be sustainable and a way to lose weight at a healthy pace. Added bonus, it was free. So when I first started using it, I did like it a lot, and I did lose weight this way. But having these kind of metrics really led to an increase in destructive habits. I would save up my calories during the week and then treat myself to a binge on the weekend. This would end up making me so sick that I missed a lot of work on Mondays. And then on those Mondays, I would just be able to have water and rice and just like try to recoup from the binge. I also became obsessed with finding packaged foods so that I could just scan them into the app instead of like searching stuff and making my meals that way. Then on top of that, I started only exercising to earn more calories, not to move my body in joyful ways. The consequences I'm missing out on due to holding on to this regret are that I still struggle to trust my hunger and fullness cues. I still feel a pull towards maybe downloading a similar app so that I can externalize the complexity of the feelings that come up when trying to feed myself. I'm also constantly getting frustrated with the numerous companies that keep trying to market themselves as not a diet that follow this same pattern. This frustration only hurts me because I can't control or change this huge industry. But I still get consumed by the feelings of unfairness, and like the rage lives on inside of me. I really think it's not cool to prey on people's insecurities to make money. I understand that that's a way a lot of people make money, but when it comes to something as essential as like feeding yourself, I just think it's so not cool. Anyway, I did everything I could when I was using the app with the tools I had at the time, and that's okay. That is who I was then, and I have grown in so many ways. I'm relieved because I'm capable of unlearning these habits through intuitive eating, and I'm optimistic about the ways I nourish myself now. I am worthy of a joyful life.
Would you like feedback, or did you just want to be heard?
Feedback on this one's okay. I've really done the work on this one. It's not very sensitive.
This is going to sound really weird, but I'm so excited that Anna's here. And again, like, we did not plan this. I did not know what Shadoe was going to say, and neither did Anna, but I'm really interested to hear Anna's feedback. I guess I wrote down a couple things. I have a curious question, and then and then Anna, you can ask any questions or give feedback too. What did you learn about your brain when you were using MyFitnessPal, or like the consequences of using MyFitnessPal? What did you learn about your brain or how you think?
I think I really learned that, like, I wanted to perform healthy eating more than I actually wanted to do healthy eating for myself. And this gave me a way to, like, prove it, like, that instead of like having to trust my feelings or trust myself or talk to people, like, I had like these numbers that I could show people, because I was being very meticulous about recording every single thing I ate. I also then got mad at my brain when it would send me signals to eat more, because I would then drink a water, then I would drink a tea, then I would just drink anything I could to, like, anything that I could not put in the app, kind of thing. And then there was like this war within myself. And I think there was while it was happening, I was really like mad at myself whenever I got those extra signals. And now I'm like, oh, my brain was just trying to keep me alive. And I do love my brain for that. But at the time, I couldn't see it that way.
And do you think, and jump in anytime here, Anna, Shadoe also has ADHD, which she only just found out about a couple years ago.
Yeah,
so
like 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think like your brain just like replaced the high it was getting? I don't know, like you were getting like an ADHD high from like putting the metrics in?
I think so. Yeah. I think it definitely became like a bit of a dopamine chaser. Like, instead of like chasing like, other things, like it would definitely became a way for me to be like, yes, like, look at me. I'm like, check. I'm doing the things. And I also found it really impacted a lot of my relationships with people, because like we'd go out to dinner and I'd be like having my app out and like making sure that like, oh, if I had one mozzarella stick off the appetizer plate, I was like putting it in and then being like, oh, you guys have the rest. And like, again, acting so pious about it. And then like not using that moment to connect with my friends in a real way,
I think it's like a perfect example of how like these things that are pushed, like diets actually affect more. Like they affect our mental health. They affect our relationships. Go ahead, Anna.
I have so many thoughts on this as you were talking. I'm not saying that every single time someone tracks something that it can be problematic or lead to
absolutely
control or disordered function, eating patterns. However, for the majority of people, it kind of is.
Yeah.
So, the first week I work with a client, I get them to write down their food. Right. Because I have no idea where we're starting. And I'm like, this is forever. I just need to know what's going on and what's happening so we can start from there. Yeah. It's really rare. I think one client I used a macro counter because they were stuck, but this person also didn't have any signs of any kind of control issues around food or any. I mean, we all have some emotional attachments to food, but no, for the most part, I think these things do more harm than good for the average person. And then I think oftentimes, not always, we have a even much more complex relationship to these things, right? Because there's so much more pressure on our body than there is for men. It's happening for men now too, but it's still whack. So the problem with these apps is, okay, there's much more than just macronutrients. If you want to learn if we're trying to lose body fat, it's not about exercising more.
Yeah.
It's not about eating less. It's about understanding the macros and what your body needs. So if you can kind of distance your emotions from just, oh, this is helping me figure out what I need. Oh, this day I ate this way and I felt better. Then it can be a tool to be used well temporarily to kind of figure out. But for the most part, it turns into obsession.
Yeah.
So
like that's what happened.
Oh, yeah. And it wasn't even tracking nutrients. It was just tracking calories. And it literally gave me a little bar chart where every day I was either in the green or in the red. And then at the end of the week, it would literally show me like, okay, at the end of the week, you have this many green left, this many red left. And I would be like, oh my gosh, amazing. I don't have to track today. And I would just eat and eat and eat and eat and eat on Sunday. And then like in the app be like maximum calories reached. And I would just input it that way. And then Monday, oh my God, now I have to eat nothing because I made myself so sick on Sunday. And it just kept happening week after week. At one point, my manager was like, I don't think you're an alcoholic, but you're missing a lot of work on like Mondays. And that's a classic like substance abuse thing. And I was like, no, I just eat too much and I get sick and like, whatever, it's fine. And we weren't working from home yet. This was back in like the early 2010s. So there was no way to cover it up. Like I wasn't going into work if I was going to be sick all day. Like there just was no way. Yeah. And it definitely became an obsession. You're right. Like, and it was just, and I do like the idea that you're saying where like write down the foods, like that's still helpful. Cause I do find, you know, like there are days that I feel better than other days and it's definitely related to what I eat, but like to actually have it as like a max, like these are your calories, these are your this, these are your that. Like it didn't work for me.
It doesn't work for most people. So any tracking tool can be, and there are a lot of different ways of doing it. They can be helpful. So you start to understand. So sometimes if I'm like, why am I so hungry? Why am I so weak? Or why can't I lift as heavy? And I can check in for a few days and go, oh, I haven't been getting enough protein, for example, right?
Yeah.
I ate not enough carbs yesterday. So it can be kind of a reminder and a good check-in, but that's not what ends up happening with most people. And one of the things that stood out the most for me that you were saying is that then you were buying packaged food as opposed to learning to eat real food.
Yeah.
Right. So this is what's happening, because you can put in with these apps, you can put in a brand name of something and it'll give you that demo. But the whole idea is to get away from packaged food.
Totally.
So it is exactly teaching us how to learn to cook food, how to be connected to food again. And in North America, specifically, I think there's this huge disconnect from food. Like you buy like a bag of 20 frozen chicken breasts, right? People forget that chickens have heads and things, right? So like disconnect from what food is in the first place. And this, I think, makes it even more. And it's just not useful. Like, I don't believe in using this for most cases. I don't like people to go on a scale. I don't think it really matters. Yes, for fat loss, we have to be in a caloric deficit pretty much. That's kind of, most people are obsessed with fat loss and they don't even need to be. When they're eating not enough calories just to function, they're not getting any nutrients. And, you know, I believe that the industry that I work in for so many years, can do a lot of really beautiful things and help people. And it can cause a lot of fucked up shit. So many problems. Like we can't just like, you know, all these like, it's out here, it's like bikinis coming summer because there's beach. And I'm like, why are we giving people eating disorders?
Right.
This needs to stop. So how about we start teaching people how to eat healthily for their body? And if someone asks me about intermittent fasting, for example, if they know all these things about it, I'm like, don't do it.
Right.
You can do it.
Is that because you think they've done too much research or seen too many like ads on Facebook about it? Or
if you know all the things about the diets, there's a very unhealthy thing tied to food. So maybe we should look deeper into that before you do fasting, because that can go into skipping meals, right?
Right.
We've struggled before with just eating healthily and listening to our body. I don't think we should be tracking. So I don't think these apps or diets or whatever give enough education on this. So anything can be okay, but it's usually used in a not right way. And it's not the consumer's fault. So it's not your fault. It's like all this crap messaging that we get, and from magazines, from the industry that I work in, it's just constantly telling us we're not good enough. And here's this way to fix it. And here's how you can eat this crappy food, like eggs in a bag that you microwave versus an egg. This is insanity.
Yeah.
Like just have a regular egg, or like you can buy a boiled egg here in plastic wrapping, or you could just actually buy eggs and boil them yourself. Right. Yeah. I love that you're like, this is insanity.
I will say that I do think those options are really good for people like who are, you know, like there can be lots of reasons why someone would buy a packaged boiled egg. They might have they might have ability issues where they can't peel an egg. It's similarly, one of my cousins got really mad because she saw peeled oranges in a plastic container at the grocery store. And she took a picture and, you know, she thought she was all cool and like making it a big thing. And then one of my other cousins was like, I can't peel an orange, but I can open a plastic container. So this is actually amazing for me. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I'm learning, like, but I don't think it is just like something that people should have instead of eggs, or like having a boiled egg option from not a vending machine, but like you know, like a calf or whatever, if you're on the go versus getting like a different sort of packaged food. I do think that's a great option.
Yeah, we have like, there's like eat this, not that options. Like if I'm going somewhere and it's a boiled egg in a package versus getting a chocolate bar.
Yeah.
Yes, there's good options, but I get what Anna, like what you're saying about our relationship with food, like the frozen chicken breast and those sorts of things. And
we don't know where it comes from. And it's just, to me, the biggest frustration is this obsession that our society has with tracking like numbers when it comes to our health. And it's not that some, like, we need to know cholesterol numbers. Okay, fine. But like, we don't really need to know weight.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like BMI is this absurd thing that's been invented. It's basically just based in racism. Like, it makes no sense. And it's so stupid. The person who invented it had no science background. It was just like this guy studying eugenics, which is just bananas. And we still use it.
Yeah.
We're obsessed with weight. Why? It doesn't matter. And with our macros, okay, so you ate a bit more calories, so you didn't lose fat. Okay, well, is that all right? Like, for the majority of cases, it's not that important. So I wish there was much more education on what real food is, how to prepare real food, how to make it easy, and how then to make you stop thinking about it. If we have to think about our food all the time, we're doing something really wrong. And I could talk about this for hours, so you might have to stop me at some point. So if my industry is making you think about food, then we're fucking up constantly.
Right. Okay, I was going to say, what about this weird thing that I find I like, and maybe I'm just more in tune with it or whatever, but a lot more companies are coming out with being like, this isn't a diet. This isn't that. But then like you look through the materials and it is still that. And I guess that's just because things are not regulated and everything else, but it seems like the industry is catching up with these kind of criticisms and trying to like morph it into something new.
It's health washing, right? So you've heard the term greenwashing, right? Which is like, for example, there's this company that has an apple seed inside the heel of their shoe. And they're like, this shoe biodegrades. So when you're done wearing these running shoes, you can bury it and it'll turn into an apple tree. Well, it won't, because like it's really hard to actually germinate apple seeds, and apple seeds like need a specific environment to do that. But like it's greenwashing. It's saying we're an environmentally friendly company. And there's health washing is happening everywhere as well, right? It's like exactly what you just said. Like, this isn't a diet. So there's like one really big company out there. I'm not going to say it to everybody. And it's like, it retrains your brain. And I was like, oh, I'm really curious to see like what they have. So I bought like a 1-month membership to see. It was calorie counting.
Yeah. With a bit of CBT on the side.
Right. And I was like, so it's not that at all. So it's so interesting. Anna, did you want to say something?
I just get really frustrated.
That was part of my regret, like holding on to it. I get so frustrated.
There's nothing wrong with using some tools to help, you know, like I said, if you're something feels off and I'm not sure where I'm making a mistake or where I can improve, but there's nothing wrong with using some tools to help give us some data. That's want to, in my heart, believe that's where a lot of these products come from.
Right.
But the issue is that if we teach people, particularly women, but not always, that from the day we're born, there's something wrong with our body, inherent, just there is. Oh, your eyeballs are wrong, your eyelashes are wrong. So let me sell you things to fix those two things. My skin is wrong, the hair on my face is wrong, my hair color is wrong, and my hairy armpits are wrong. Apparently I'm supposed to have the vulva of a 12-year-old now. My nails are wrong. Everything on my body is wrong, and they can sell me something to fix it.
Yeah.
You take that, plus we're supposed to be teeny tiny in voice and teeny tiny in body. Great. So you put those two things together and it just becomes really difficult to learn how to actually feed your body. There's no education on how to actually give yourself real and nourishing foods. It's all about like what's good for your waistline and not. Also, why does that really matter? Like, there's just so much stuff that we're taught from the beginning that just to look at food as nourishment, because it is, and pleasure sometimes, because it can be. It's, you know, it's not what we've been taught. So then it becomes like this ultra pleasure that then becomes like unhealthy, because it's not about
guilt happens. Then cycle. Yeah.
So how about we just start learning what food is and what your body needs and what makes you feel good, not just like happy, but actually feel good.
Back to basics.
And then if my butt isn't as great as her butt, does it really?
I'm gonna put you on the spot a little bit, Anna. Do you have any, like maybe 1 or 2 tips for people to get started? I mean, I learned one from you, which I think is amazing. And I'm probably going to say it wrong. So you can say it, like how to figure out the difference between emotion, like if you're emotionally hungry or if you're actually hungry.
Yeah. So when you're actually like a real hunger, like you haven't eaten or you didn't eat enough, balanced food before, anything will do. You're just like, I need anything. Like there's open your fridge and like you just need to eat, right? So actual hunger, it's like down. It's like in your gut and it's telling you I need food. Emotional hunger is you get a craving for a very specific thing. I really need cheese and a glass of wine. That is not real hunger. That is noise. That is this noise in your head. That is emotional. There's a difference, right? Can you see it?
I think that one tip for me has been so helpful in terms of, I call it grasping. Like sometimes I'm just around the house, I'm grasping. I just need to grab something. Like I know I'm hungry and I'll grab anything. And I'm like, okay, this is real hunger. Or other times I'm like opening up the pantry door and slamming it or the fridge because I'm like, I need chocolate. I need chocolate. I need chocolate.
And that's emotional.
When I learned that from you, I was like, oh, because it's such a simple tool and it's an easy question to ask yourself or to know. If I'm going, I need chocolate, then I can then ask myself, what is it that I'm really craving? Am I craving love? Am I craving sleep? Am I actually craving water? Am I dehydrated? Like, what is it? Because we can crave more things than just food, right? Like, what is it that I'm actually craving? But if I'm just going, I need chocolate, I need chocolate, I need chocolate, I'm emotionally craving something. I'm not physically craving something. Versus I need to eat something. Oh, here's a handful of almonds. I'm going to eat some almonds, or I would have eaten an apple if that was the first thing I saw.
So whatever's available, you'll eat. That's real hunger. And then a very specific thing is emotional. And I use the cheese and wine example because that's mine. If I'm feeling very overwhelmed, I'm like, I can't get to everything. It's like, I'm just going to have cheese and wine for dinner.
I'm chocolate.
Right. So I'm like, okay, so whatever, I'm just like, I just want a loaf of bread and cheese and wine. I'm just trying to avoid something that I'm feeling, which is like overwhelm, rest. How do I all these things? So the best thing to do is if you start to feel that noise, if you realize, okay, so some people might not get the craving for a thing. It could also just feel like if you close your eyes and take a deep breath, like, where is it coming from? Is it deep in your gut? Like you get hunger pains when you're hungry. Body will physically tell you need to eat. Or is it like more in your chest and your throat? Take a deep breath and check in. A lot of the times if you just breathe, maybe journal for 2 minutes and have a glass of water, it'll go away. But if you're actually hungry, you have to go eat. Right. Yeah. And it's paying attention to those things.
I love that too, because chest and throat, like that's where the majority of people, not everybody, I'm saying, because anxiety is different for everyone, but chest and throat is definitely where like I suffer from anxiety when I'm having anxiety, chest, throat. And then if I tune in there and I'll realize my like shoulders are up by my ears and I don't have a neck, right? And then I need to like relax my shoulders and open up my breathing. Again, I wasn't actually craving food then. I was craving like a tension release and I was craving a connection to myself.
Yes.
It was an aha moment for me when you kind of taught me that kind of tool to differentiate between emotional and actual physical, like food as fuel cravings. And for sharing.
And then I would like to add one more thing to that, right? So if I'm trying to figure out what it is, and it might take a while, again, because we've been taught to ignore our bodies, right? So especially if we've been taught to diet all the time, we were taught to ignore hunger. So that's really messing us up. So if you're craving all the time, also see if there's a pattern in your cravings, right? So my example of myself of like the cheese and wine is just when I'm super overwhelmed and I'm like, I can't get everything done. How am I going to do this? I can't get her system time, but if I don't pay for her, how am I going to advance? So that's that. It's a very specific. And then once in a while, like, do I just want like fries? Like, which is super weird for me. Like, I don't eat this. And so if I'm having that, it's almost like oh my God, I'm cursing so much on this podcast, but it's like, it's my like, fuck it craving, which is like, fuck it. Like, I just can't. So just like, fuck it. Right. So a lot of us have things. It's like, and that happens a lot with dieting. It's like, fuck it. I can't diet. I suck. So screw this. And then we eat something.
Yeah.
And then we feel guilty.
Yeah. And then we eat more because we're feeling guilty. And then it's Last Supper syndrome, right? Then it's like, oh, I'm going to start dieting again tomorrow. So I have to eat the chocolate and the wine and the cheese and the bread and the butter and like.
Or I have to clean out everything in my cupboard. I don't want to waste this food. And I have this bag of leftover Halloween candy. So I'm going to eat the whole bag instead of throwing it out because I don't want to waste the food. So I might as well just eat that now and then eat everything else too, right? So there's that like mentality about wasting food.
And then why work out? Because I already ate that. Right. Yeah, next morning it's like, well, I ate that, so fuck it. Why make the That's the, I mean, there's like a cycle there, but one is just like anxiety. And then that, I find that those are the two most common.
And I am curious if you think there is ever a use for emotional eating though.
I don't know if there's a use, but I think that we all have like adult versions of soothers.
Right. I think that's more what I'm saying. Like from time to time, like if there really is no other way to regulate yourself in that moment, is it okay to have the chocolate? Is it okay to?
Of course. The problem is like, there's nothing wrong with chocolate. I mean, there's nothing wrong with chocolate, actual real chocolate.
Yeah.
Right. The problem is when we overeat it, right? Or we can't control ourselves around the food, then there's no bad food, right? It's how we react around it. But who's so highly evolved that they don't sometimes have a relaxing meal to, like they're like, I'm just going to do this. It makes me feel good. Or who doesn't watch a reality show, or who doesn't read a trashy magazine, or who doesn't, who doesn't do that? Like everybody, that's why it's like those two things, like I just can't. So I'm just going to zone out calm down with this food, calm down with this. There's something to be said for sometimes we just need to like zone out. And also if anyone's listening and you're going through a really hard time, like maybe you're going through a divorce, maybe you feel really overwhelmed because you're taking care of elderly parents, or you have a child with special needs. And, a lot of moms who work inside of the home and outside of the home. And in the majority of houses, the work isn't balanced if you're in a heterosexual relationship. So sometimes you're just going to do what you got to do to calm down. And I'm not saying it's okay, but I'm not saying it's bad.
Right.
Everybody's going to at some point just do it. It becomes a problem if we're doing all the time.
Can I add to that a little bit too is, I mean, the reason that we started this podcast, Let's Really Regret, is because there's an epidemic of guilting ourselves and shaming ourselves, and nobody shames us more than we shame ourselves. Right. So this was the experiment. We wanted to have guests on. We started with ourselves for the first episode. Is like, these are things that have happened to me and I feel shame or I feel guilt about it. I want to release it. So honestly, I hate the word balance, but I'm going to use it here, right? Like finding the balance in that self-soothing. And one of the things that I will do, or I'll talk to clients about too, is, okay, if you're going to do it, give yourself permission to do it. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to eat this like big, beautiful meal, or I'm going to binge watch a couple episodes on Netflix and eat some chocolate, but I'm doing it with intention before I do it, so that I'm not doing it mindlessly. I'm saying I'm giving myself permission to do this for the next 3 hours. I'm not going to guilt myself afterwards. And then I'm going to move forward. I'm going to move forward from the self-soothing, and I'm going to use the tools that I've learned from Victoria or from your therapist or from courses you've taken online or whatever. Then I'm going to use the tools, but I need to give myself a 3-hour break right now to feel nothing or feel good. And then I'm going to move forward and do the work on myself. But you set that intention before.
I like that.
Yeah. The other thing I really love that you said, Anna, too, is like, there's no bad food. But I also want to say, and I think, Anna, you'll agree, there's a difference between food and things that are edible. I don't mean edible marijuana gummies, everybody. I mean, like, right? Like literally in the definition of like whatever country you're in, Food and Drug Administration, Canadian Food Inspection Agency, whatever country you're in, there's stuff in processed food that isn't technically food, but it's considered to be edible, that the body can process. So I think when Anna said no bad food, you're meaning there's no bad food that's real food. What you mean by there's no bad food.
Yeah, like let's stop beating up on carrots and potatoes. Like let's just,
Yeah.
And I think that's so we all do stuff. And I'm really open with my clients about it. I have a client, actually today I had a session with one, and one of the ways he was like, okay, I know I'm not eating well. And he was like, just give it to me. I'm like, why? No, that's like very unnecessary. It's not going to move us forward. Right? We're not going to, but also if we're using food as a soother that it's preventing us from achieving other things in our other health and other goals in our life, then this is just, then we have to, be just kinder to ourselves. Like there's nothing wrong. Like honestly, like one day a week, like I want to watch like one show. Like if it's like Maisel or The Sex Lives of College Girls, be alone, like nobody talk to me, and I want to have like a tea or a glass of wine if it's a Friday night. And like, I want to go out and I'm so happy and I'll eat whatever I feel like it. And that's one day. And then the rest, I'm still moving all the time and I'm eating very healthy and I'm still productive. Right. So the issue is when we start to, it's like anything, there's nothing wrong with watching a show if you feel like it, but if we binge watch all these TV shows and then we don't move forward in our goals, then that's unhealthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, I hate the word balance, but like maybe it's not balance. Maybe the word I'm looking for is like intention, self-awareness. Again, like this is what I teach with my clients and with my participants. If you come to any classes or members of the My Record community, right, is when we can use the tools of self-awareness and having conversations with ourselves, then we start to find alignment and balance in our lives. So find those self-awareness tools and check-ins. And we demonstrate that in this podcast, everybody. We always do a check-in. We always do a cause for applause. We ask for feedback, and then, we might and then we do a debrief with that feedback, right? These are really simple, easy tools you can use with your conversation with yourself, but also with your conversation with your friends, with your family members, I'll bring it back to rowing just for 1 second. I honestly believe I've been so successful in rowing and in being a rowing coxswain, because even if I'm just coming in as a guest for a practice to come in and cox a crew and maybe do some coaching from the boat, there's always a check-in before we get into the boat. And there's always a circle afterwards. And even if I never see those athletes again, you don't just get off the water, put your boat away, put your oars away and run away. No, we have a circle and we go around and we say, what worked, what didn't work? How did I feel? How do I feel? Right. And I honestly believe that's one of the secret sauces of being successful in sport, being successful in life, being right. But it's about self-awareness and checking in.
Something that I want to, because I said I can talk 6 hours about this. That's a really subject. But when you mentioned that you would go to a restaurant and you couldn't share the food with your friends, that's really also important to kind of think about, because obviously if I'm going out with my friends and they're all ordering, if all my friends want to eat like at a fast food place, I really don't want to go there. I mean, that's not that common here in Europe, but so there are in general better restaurant options here that are more budget friendly, because I know that in North America, if you eat a really clean meal, sometimes it's really expensive, right?
Absolutely.
So you have to be aware of that. But so I am quite lucky where I live right now that I kind of took it for granted that I was like, really great food for not that expensive. But so if you're going out with your friends and there's a lot of different stuff to choose from, but you feel like you can't eat something because unless there's a health issue and you have to do some kind of an elimination diet for your health, and we're like trying to heal your gut or diabetes, you know what I mean? Unless it's something big, it's not sustainable. So if you feel like you can't live your life and you can't enjoy your life and you can't be social and you can't have connections with friends. I mean, food, like every religious holiday is based around food. The Last Supper, this is every religion, everything is based around this. So if we can't have food be at the core of first dates are food usually, right? So interaction, this is a problem because that's what life is. So if you're going to not go out and bring a Tupperware instead, or stay home and avoid seeing your friends, this is something that not only is not sustainable, that's a really good alarm for anyone who's doing this to say, this is not only unsustainable, it is not healthy.
Absolutely. I think that's a really good point to maybe wrap up my share, because I want to be mindful of our time together today. But yeah, I agree with you, Anna. I could just talk about this all day and be very happy. But I'm going to close off my share there.
I want to say thank you for sharing, Shadoe. I always am blown away by what you share, because I think it's so relatable. I think people need to hear these conversations. Yeah. And I'm so glad that Anna was here for this, because Anna, thank you for your input too.
I thank both of you for having such a great conversation with me.
Thank you for sharing. That's a really big thing.
It's a big one. Hey everyone, Victoria here.
And Shadoe.
We wanted to take a moment to appreciate Anna's great advice before we move on to her story. She has so much good stuff to share and say, and I personally loved it.
I did too. Anna had some great insights on the connections between food and mood that I found super compelling. I felt really safe sharing my story with her.
We are so excited that Anna has generously offered to give you, our listeners, 15% off of her online course, the Vitalicious Nutrition Program.
Wow. Sign up now to learn more about the relationship between what you eat and how it affects your brain, your body, and your mood.
This 6-week program includes 15 video lessons, tons of recipes, shopping lists, and downloadable worksheets. And you get access to all of this information for life. You can download it and learn at your own pace.
Topics include gut health, women's nutrition, and letting go of diets.
All you have to do to claim this opportunity is check out the show notes for this episode. Click on the link for the Vitalicious Nutrition Program. And when you check out, use the discount code REGRET to get 15% off when you sign up. That's REGRET, regret.
But please wait until after the show. Anna's story is coming right up.
And now back to the podcast. All right, Anna, are you ready for your share? We're so excited for your share.
Yeah.
Can't wait to hear what you have to say. So go for it.
I have an experience that I need to let go of to move forward. And I regret that when I moved to a new country, I didn't think of the long-term effects it would have in all areas of my life. And I think to summarize that, because of course I was like, okay, I'm moving. I get it. Like I'm moving. I'm not gonna be with my family. I have to start from zero. Like that obviously I knew, and it felt very exciting. But I didn't quite understand when I was 29 years old that wherever I go, I go. So it doesn't really matter where I'm living, how sunny it is. Me and all my stuff inside that I didn't want to face is going to come up at some time. And it'll be in different types of restaurants, and it'll be in a different climate, but all my crap that I just was like, no, it's fine. We'll come back up. So I didn't think that through in the last few years. It's been popping up a bit.
So interesting, right? Before I even say anything, would you like feedback, or do you just want to be heard? Do you want to have a conversation about it?
Yeah, I think a conversation, but I think so. Like, I mean, I don't regret moving at all.
Yeah.
And so it's hard for me to answer that question. It wasn't like necessarily regret, but I didn't think of the impact it would have. Again, I came for like a year and it's been 13 years, right? So I didn't think about the impact it would have on my career.
Interesting.
Like I didn't think so, for example, how much I could charge, because I don't get a salary, right? So for me to talk about salaries doesn't make sense because I work for myself. So what I'm able to charge for my services here are drastically different than what I could charge if I was still living in North America, right? I also didn't think about what that would look like how would that impact me that when I go back to Canada. So if I make a certain amount of income here, it's okay-ish because restaurants are a certain price point, apartments are cheaper. So there's like all these things that are, I mean, there is becoming this really huge disconnect between what you make and what like the cost of living is. It is getting quite dangerous. But when I go to North America, what I make, and I'm not saying it's not okay. I'm just saying like there are things, and it's not that, I mean, for 20 years experience, what that can look like here and 20 years experience with like North America is different, right? So I didn't think about that. I also didn't think about, okay, so what happens if I want to move back? Do I want to move back? What does that feel like? Does it feel like okay if I move back, or does it feel like I'm a failure? Am I a failure? What am I failing at? Like, so I didn't think about all of those things versus like, I'm going to travel for a year, putting roots down and but not really putting roots down, if that makes sense.
So it's really interesting. I've got a couple of curious questions. I can see that Shadoe does too. So you moved to Europe in your 20s or late 20s?
Yeah, when I was 29. Yeah.
Is it fair to put the word consequence in here? Like you weren't thinking about like the long-term effects or consequences. And so I guess my curious question is, when you first moved there, what was the intention?
Interesting. So the intention was I needed a change, and I also wanted to travel, and that's true. And I got living here. I get to travel a lot more than I could if I was living in North America, just because everything's closer in Europe. In there's more of a culture of vacationing and traveling, and people figure out ways to do it. So that's awesome. And I wanted to change, but I think one of the things was I was not very happy. So maybe I should have led with this. And it's funny how my salary came out first, but I was in a really long-term relationship for about 10 years and I was unhappy, and like, we were okay. And we owned a home, and he was a really lovely person, but it just wasn't my life. Like I gave up one of my biggest dreams, and it would have been this like, okay life, absolutely nothing wrong with it, but it wasn't like centered into who I felt like I was living somebody else's version. And then I was thinking about all the reasons that the relationship wasn't working. It was because this person doesn't have A, B, C, and D. So then I just need to find someone who has A, B, C, and D. And that's it. So, and then I did. And then that was like even worse, right? So it's not about the other person, it's about your crap. And then I also didn't really understand, like, that's what I mean, like wherever you go, you go. So I didn't understand that a new place won't fix whatever's not going on in here that I work on in here. I'm hetero, so I'm gonna say a new man isn't going to change what this man couldn't give you, because like I'm the common denominator, right? So I didn't think about those things. And then it's interesting that, and then I didn't think about, like I said, that one thing, and then the long-term effects of what that could be and what it means if I change my mind. So the last few years, obviously I've been like, oh, you go through therapy and do a lot more stuff, and you get older, right? Like I was also in my 20s. So I have to kind of forgive myself for not understanding these things, because I don't think most of us in our 20s understand.
This is actually, like, in my opinion, like a perfect example of guilt or regret, but saying that it's not guilt or regret. So thank you for sharing the story, because I actually think it's perfect for the podcast, is that we're complex, right? Human beings are complex, and we can feel more than one thing at a time. Like we can be happy and sad at the same time. Like we can do like the sad laughing or happy crying, right? Like we can feel more than one thing at a time. And those are like really like general examples, but like we can feel really deep things. You like displayed like an incredible amount of self-awareness and saying, this relationship isn't for me. I'm going to move and travel. But then there was like a whole other part of self-awareness that wasn't there. That was like, why am I doing this? So you were like, displaying self-awareness, understanding your needs and wants in a relationship, but then at the same time, ignoring your relationship with yourself. And I love what you're saying is in that, like, what did you say? Wherever I go, or
wherever you go. Yeah. Wherever I go, I go.
Yeah, you go, and you're still there. And that relationship with yourself, and, like being kind to yourself in terms of, I mean, that was like I'm not going to say we're not super old here, but that was a long time ago, like you're 20s, and now you're in now we're in our 40s. Right. So it was like, the brain works differently. Your life experience works differently, all those things. I see Shadoe shaking your head. So pop in anytime here, Shadoe. I'm
not shaking my head. I'm nodding. I think the idea that like not just moving somewhere, but like even just taking a vacation is going to fix that. Like that nagging feeling I have inside of me that things aren't good. If I just go even for a long weekend, I'll be fixed when I come back. And we all, not only do we believe that for ourselves, we believe it for other people. So if someone does take a vacation and comes back and they're still that same grumpy person, we're like, but they just went on a vacation. How are they not more cheerful? And like, why do we do this to people? Like, that's such an unfair expectation.
So I'm going to throw it out there. I think I say this in like every episode now, toxic positivity, right? And one form of toxic positivity, there's many forms, is minimizing. That example you just gave, Shadoe, was like a really great example. We minimize when we give people advice when they're struggling with making life decisions, like, oh, just take a day off, you'll be fine. Oh, take a vacation, you'll be fine. That's minimizing. And that's also a form of like not acknowledging that person's feeling. It's not actually helpful. And then what you just said, Shadoe, like judging them after, like they went on vacation, why are they still grumpy? That's also a form of toxic positivity. Like everything should be fine. You should be fine. You should be great. What are you complaining about? You're just on vacation. I think we do the same. Like it's kind of part of toxic positivity, but also part of self-awareness is I think, and what I've seen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, then one of the number one things that we do when we are trying to find ourselves or we're feeling disconnected from ourselves, we think we need to change the environment we're in, go on a vacation, go like get out of the house, move to a different, I mean, Anna, like you went to the extreme, right? Like you moved to like your country,
you might do everything, right? That's why I don't necessarily like, I don't regret it. Yeah. Right. So that's why I was like, regret. And it's funny how the story started, right? It's like, it's because it's harder. Some things are harder, but some things are way better. So like, kind of just like, this is the, I didn't, I don't regret it because I was 29 and now in my 40s. And then I'm sure when I'm 60, I'll be looking back at stuff that I did now and I didn't have the same tools or the same self-awareness. And I'm also grateful that I've been able to have enough money to pay for a therapist, because not everybody can pay for a therapist, right? So that's already like something really that I'm grateful for, that I've been able to do that. And that don't have children. So I've been able to invest much more in me. And sometimes when you have kids, or oftentimes there's not a lot of thinking what you need first, right? So it's just that it's interesting that it's something that I don't regret, because you learn from it, but I didn't really get this. Wherever you go, you go. And it was kind of a really hard lesson to learn. And the last few years, like, okay, so that happened and that happened. Yeah. Same problems, just they're all wearing different colored pants,
Yeah.
Hard pants.
Hard pants. They'll have some hard pants.
And then and that's why and this time I get to have like really nice sun and like some really great food, but the same on a crap that I was pushing down started to come up.
Right.
So.
Yeah. We push it down and comes up. So like our go-to is almost like running away. It's survival and like, let's change our location. Or maybe for you listeners out there, it's like, let's change jobs. I'm going to quit my job and get another job. But like, we want to change something external. What we really need to do is, start looking at changing some things that are internal instead of external. And I've said this before, deep work doesn't always have to be hard work. Sometimes when you're in that state of overwhelm, you're needing change. You're not meeting your needs. You haven't set your boundaries correctly. You're unhappy in the relationships you're in, whether they're romantic, whether they're work, whether they're friends, whether it's family, whatever it is, it can feel like so exhausting. And that's what overwhelm feels like so exhausting and overwhelming to say, and scary to be like, I don't want to do the internal work because I'm afraid things are going to come up. Like I'm afraid of myself and things are going to come up. So I'm going to do it externally. And like, I'm going to say it too, working out can be one of those external things that we do too. Like we can get obsessed with like working out and training our bodies because we get a dopamine high from it, but it's not fixing what's inside as well. Like we need to work on everything on the wellness wheel, but deep work doesn't have to be hard work. That's what I'm saying. If you're having an aha moment, listeners, and you're listening to this and you're going, yes, I feel overwhelmed, but I'm afraid to do work on myself. But yes, I've definitely like been the person that's changed jobs or moved locations or gone on a vacation and think it's going to fix everything. Start with the small and slow solutions. And I talk about this in my letting go class. We've talked about this here before too. Like write down the things that you feel guilty about or the things that you want to let go of. It's just a conversation between you and yourself. Put it on a piece of paper. You can start to learn about yourself and you don't have to share it with anyone, and then have fun with it. Rip it up into a bunch of pieces and burn it, throw it in the garbage, write it on a piece of toilet paper and flush it down the toilet, right? Like deep work doesn't have to be hard and heavy for it to actually have an impact in you starting to understand yourself and feeling lighter. And then once you get comfortable with those things, you can start going a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper.
I think there's something too, like, when you were talking about you getting back in a boat, because then we also have these like identities that we right? So I was like, my identity was like, wow, you just take off, you do this, you take these risks. I'm like, yeah, I'm her. I'm like, well,
you had like that jet setter identity, world traveler.
Yeah, I was like, I'm about this. Oh, look, you told people laugh when they deserve it. Ooh. But then it's like, but then what if I just like want like quiet or like something simple? Because I was running away from something that felt too simple. Then sometimes it feels like, what happens if I just want a bit of simple now?
Yeah.
And I can't because I ran away like a million years ago from the simple, like, what are people going to think of me?
Right. That you're judging yourself and you're afraid of other people judging you. And then like, you're not obligated to be the same person you were in your 20s. You're not obligated to be the same person you were yesterday. It's interesting. Shadoe and I have had a lot of conversations about this. We had it last time actually, is we hold on to those identities specifically, I think from our 20s. We think that's our identity. That's not our identity. That's what we do or what we thought we wanted to do. If Christian was going to describe me, right? He's my person. He's the person closest to me on the face of the planet. He knows me better than I know myself a lot of the times. Not all the time, because I know myself better than I know myself as well, everybody. That's self-awareness. But Christian wouldn't say, oh, this is my wife. She's a rowing coxswain. She's a life coach, right? Anna knows my husband, so she's laughing, right? Christian would describe me. He would be like, this is my wife. I love her. She's a kind person. She's intelligent. She looks at the big picture. She tries to heal the world. Like these are things Christian would describe me as, right? That's my identity. My identity isn't what I do. Right. My identity is how I move through the world and how I treat the relationships that I have. And that's true. I treat relationships different than other people might treat relationships, right? Like how my acts of kindness might be different than your acts of kindness, right? Like I actually think identity doesn't even really like exist, right? I'm not going to get into like sexual and gender identities. That's a whole different thing. What I'm saying is like, we misuse the word identity and then we use it to put ourselves in a box and judge ourselves. I'm allowed to evolve depending on my human experience. And I'm allowed to have the best of human experience I can have. And I'm allowed to say what my needs and wants are. And I'm allowed to set boundaries up. And guess what else? I'm allowed to change my mind. I might have believed in something and I changed my mind 10 years later. I might have believed in eating 100-calorie snack packs in my 20s because I thought that was going to help me lose weight. Right. And now I'm like, I don't believe in that. I believe in eating real food. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Anna. What were you going to say?
No, I think it's just, I think the reason I chose this story, right? And I was like, okay, how do I describe it? Right. It's just that when I did it, and so I said, I don't regret doing it. And there's a lot of beautiful things that came from it. I think there's two things that I learned a lot about that, about reflecting on, because I'm deciding whether I want to stay here or not, right? Because I miss my family. So I'm kind of like making these pros and cons lists constantly about this decision as of late. I said the two biggest things I think I learned from this was, one, I was running away. Like part of it was running towards something new, towards something exciting. And sometimes that's just fun to do something exciting and like experience all these amazing new things that you wouldn't if you didn't take a risk and make this decision. And there is something beautiful in that. But I was kind of running away from some things. I was running towards some and away from some. So that's what I mean. Like wherever you go, whatever you're running away from, it's going to come back up. Right. So that's why, like when I mentioned like this not joke, but like that, like, okay, of a career. Okay. Well, I wasn't necessarily running, like thinking everything through and having like a very good plan. So I just run away and don't think, which is what I did when I was 29. And other consequences. But the second thing is that there's always consequences. And I think oftentimes we struggle, and I don't remember getting much education on this. Like everything you do, every decision you make has like really amazing stuff or not so great stuff, all of them. So if you choose to get married to this amazing person, you will have a lot of great things, or amazing person for you. You can't date other people. You're going to sleep with the same person all the time unless you have an open marriage, right? So like, that's just what happens, right? Every decision we make has like these really beautiful outcomes and maybe not some. You can build this huge career and maybe your relationships suffer. You can have really beautiful relationships and maybe your career didn't grow as much. And I live in like this place that has amazing food and sun, but I'm really far from my family. I think that it took me a while to understand that no matter what choice I make, it doesn't mean it's a right or wrong choice. It's just there's going to be, pros and cons to everything.
Yeah. I think what you've displayed as well is you've actually kind of taken us on your journey in just telling your story from being 29 to now, in terms of your journey of self-awareness too. And in terms of what is a healthy way to reflect back. And again, that's why we do this podcast too, is to say, what's a healthy way to release regrets, or what's a healthy way to look back and like remove the regret or the guilt and look back. And you're that's what you're saying. You're saying, I don't regret it, because you've already been through the process of letting go of that regret and saying, I learned from that. And now I'm sitting here and I'm still learning and I'm processing it. And I'm trying to figure out where I want to go from here, because my needs and wants were different when I was 29 than they are now. I've grown as a person. I've evolved as a person. And now I'm reassessing. And you just demonstrated it beautifully. And also that we're complex. Nobody's perfect. We're complex. It was a great decision then, or part of it was a great decision, but part of it you're also acknowledging was that you were running away from yourself, but there were also parts of it that were really great decision for you. What do you learn from that?
Oh, I just had a question related to you. You mentioned it so briefly where like you had originally planned to go out for 1 year. Yeah. And now it's 13 years later. So what changed in that first year to make you stay?
Well, first, I was like, I'm just going to figure and see what happens. Like that was just I do love living here. There's like a lot of really beautiful things living here. Like I do enjoy living in Europe in the sense where it is a very different lifestyle. People go out more. Like sometimes in Canada, I'd be like, why do we have to make plans like 4 months in advance? Like, why can't we just, you have to eat. Can't we just schedule it together? Like, it's not like you're going to skip dinner, like, why is it such a big deal? So it's a bit more, there's a lot more of that, which the social part I quite enjoy. So like that in Europe, I can take a plane for an hour that costs very little money, and I can be in a whole different culture and experience something new and fun and learn and grow. Whereas it's less expensive, right? Which I mentioned earlier, right. I couldn't do that. So this is really interesting to be able to go and eat food in a different culture and meet new people that I wouldn't be able to do. Also, the weather's way good.
Yeah. I'm also good. So like, it wasn't like the first year happened and you're like, oh, I'm just going to stay. It's like every year it just kind of kept being like, I guess I'm not going back.
Yes. And then there were a lot of things that I enjoyed, like some of And then also I did get into a long-term relationship.
Right. Yeah.
For 8 years. So that's something that I'm like, oh, okay. So, and then I ended up, and then when it ended, again, people were like, well, you're just moving back to Canada. I'm like, I don't know, like what?
Right.
I came here for me and I'm enjoying it. I have built a life here. I have a career here. I have friends here. I have stuff. Right. So then it just, then I stayed because I really enjoyed a lot of aspects of living here. And now at this point, like, okay, so missing my family is really, really difficult. And it's really painful because I can't go like every 2 months or something. And that's starting to make me, just that alone is enough for me to start to go, okay, actually, maybe should I rethink this? Just because I want to be able to have dinner with my family on like a Sunday.
Yeah. Well, maybe you make the decision the opposite way, like you come back for a year. And like, it doesn't have to be permanent. Just because you're coming back to Canada doesn't mean it has to be forever. Like, or if you make that decision, like.
It's just a weird conversation sometimes because I feel like nobody really cares if I move. I mean, people love me if I because my friends here, or my family would be very happy. And so it's not that. What I mean is like, I'm concerned. Like, well, should I move back? Am I running away this time? What am I doing?
Right.
Is it because of just work? Because that's just your own noise you're making and complaint as to like, is that just like a way to block your decision? Also, if you move back and you tell people, why'd you move back? Why didn't it go? I told you so. I told you it wasn't gonna be for you. What are they gonna think?
Yes.
Is someone gonna say, well, it's because it's too hard? Like, is it gonna say because, oh, you're not in a relationship anymore? Like, and what I mean, like, no one cares. Like, nobody cares. I know that nobody cares. Like,
it's so funny that you say that, because like all I did was move from Sudbury to Toronto, and I have that all the time where I'm like, maybe I would move back to Sudbury, and then I get that exact same spiral of thoughts all the time, and I'm like, and that's like only a 5-hour drive. It's not like halfway across the world like you did. So I think it's completely relatable that those thoughts are coming up. The only other thing I wanted to provide as like a moment of brevity is or levity. There's this sketch that Adam Sandler did the last time he hosted SNL, and it's called Romano Tours. And in this sketch, he works at a winery in Italy. And he does this real commercial instead of like, "Ooh, come to our winery and enjoy it." He's sick of people coming to his winery to escape something. And then like, he's like, I can provide you wine. I can provide you this. I can't change the reason you drink wine.
Yeah, exactly.
And he has like all different examples of that, where it's like, you might have come on vacation to distract yourself from this or that, but like, that's not what this is. That's not what this is going to be. Like, you can drink wine here, period. Like, that's all you can do here. It's not going to change you as a person. And it was just so funny. I've watched it a few times now.
It's just, even the way I started to explain the story, I was like, wherever you go, and it sounds very nice. I'm like, because of work. I'm like, actually, that's just like noise. Like, I feel like I need to justify in an Excel spreadsheet why I will make the decision to stay or to go.
But then you got this is like, I'm loving this so much because it's so complex, right? Like, we're not going to come up with an answer by the end of the podcast, listeners, but this is like a real human experience. Like, we're complex, right? Like, we have all of these like interwoven thoughts at the same time, and the decisions we make about our life are complex. But I do think one of the most important things, and I think you're demonstrating it well, being kind to yourself, taking the time to make the decision that's right for you in this moment in time. It doesn't have to be what the decision that's going to be right for you 5 years from now. You can take the time and make the right decision. There's always some kind of clarity in sharing, some kind of clarity in getting feedback from friends or friends of friends in this case, and sharing your stories and being vulnerable. There's always power in being vulnerable and being honest, everybody. And I think, that's kind of the message we try to send here too. So Anna, I want to thank you so much for so many reasons for coming today. One, for giving incredible feedback and sharing your opinions about food and about behavior around food, not just human behavior, but like relationships around food and how that's complex. But that, I think, like, part of your message, which I get from you too, is how can we find the joy in nurturing ourselves with food too, and doing it so that we can feel healthy, well connected, all the things. So I want to thank you from that perspective. And then I want to thank you for being brave enough to come on and share a personal story, and that we could have a really complex conversation.
I'm going to listen to this and be like, why did I say all that at the beginning? It was like a therapy session. So I think at the end of this therapy session, what I think I need to let go of isn't like it's the not that I make the right decision then, because who knows? I don't know. It's like, did you make the right decision by marrying that person? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Because there could have been someone else different. It's like, will you pick this, will you pick, then you're gonna make it work or not, right? I know there's more complex things, and I think that what I need to let go of isn't if that decision was correct at the time, if I sacrifice things. I need to let go of the noise of anything that's related to this, right? Like if I choose to keep moving forward or not with.
Yeah, Anna, like I totally agree with what you're saying. And okay, so this is what I want to say. This is the power of having these conversations, or the power of even just listening to this conversation for our listeners. And we really hope that that's the gift that our listeners get out of this too, is you can have a breakthrough moment. And a breakthrough moment for me is when you realize a pattern in yourself, or you realize something that you want to let go of, which is like totally different than what your expectations or societal expectations are of what your pattern should be, or what you need to let go.
Yeah. So I think what I need to let go of is the noise. That's it. So my attachments to anything that's going to show up in my journal or spreadsheets, like not that like whatever I feel is like a good decision for me, today, that's what it is. I need to let go of any of the noise that I'm attaching to any of these things.
I have like the biggest smile on my face. You can't see it right now, listeners, because like, this is what I live for. Having conversation with friends, having conversations with clients, whatever way it is, but to be part of the process of seeing people like have these kind of aha moments with themselves, really simple ones, all the way up to the big ones. So thank you so much, Anna. We appreciate you so, so much. And if you'd like to join us, we always close with 3 breaths of letting go. So let's do our 3 breaths of letting go, everybody. Come on to the front edge of your seat. Put your feet on the floor. If you want, you can put your hand on your heart. And of course, disclaimer, if you're driving, please don't put your feet on the floor, but please breathe with us. Make sure you're in a safe place that you can do the 3 breaths of letting go. And just close your eyes if you want. And on this first inhale, as you exhale, I choose to release pressure and expectations. And on this next breath, big inhale in, filling your belly. Exhale, I relieve my regrets. My past does not define me. And on this last one, feel if you can feel your feet on the floor a little more, knowing that you're grounding yourself and the earth is always supporting you. Gravity will never let you fly away. Big breath in. As you exhale, I choose to be kind to myself moving forward. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Thank you so much to our special guest, Anna Christina. We will see you in the next one, everyone. Okay, bye.